way they deliver the good news and the not so good news sometimes, especially with foundation issues lately. Sorry, but last night I was like on the texting Jeannie, our wonderful vice chair here, who's going to be in charge of the meetings next year. I'm like, if I don't show up in the morning, it's because I've left the country due to 4 houses with inspection issues and slab leaks and people needing to tunnel in houses, and I'm like, oh my God. Let's get through July and August, right? I'm sure everybody can relate to what we're talking about. But anyway, I'd like to just introduce our panelists, and feel free to come up, guys. We've got 3 of our wonderful, well-known inspectors here to join us, and we're going to do like a little Q&A, which Jeannie's already been passing the basket and getting questions. So we're kind of going to make this a interactive, kind of fun meeting this morning. So first of all, I'd like to introduce on your left, my right, Jim Adams, Mr. Jim Adams. He's the owner and professional inspector. Feel free to have a seat.
Okay, good. Thank you.
We
appreciate that.
This is kind of a relaxed meeting. We don't have a real formal meeting. Owner and professional inspector at Made to Last Home Inspections. Jim started his company inspection business in 2011. Has performed several thousand inspections in the past 6 years. Past chairman of CCAR's inspection committee. And has been a tour sponsor for the Wiley Garland Business Development meetings for the last 3 years. Thank you very much, Jim.
Certainly.
Also recently elected to serve as the president of the Texas Association of Real Estate Inspectors and is the immediate past president of the North Texas chapter of that organization. Thank you very much. Next we have Mr. Pat Standifer.
Standifer.
I think I should know your name.
Should.
With National Property Inspections. Pat moved here 8 years ago from Lubbock, Texas, after retiring from the police department there as a police officer. He has worked construction full-time before joining the police department and part-time while his kids were in college. He bought a franchise in 2010 with National Property Inspections and became a licensed inspector, and since then has done over 2,000 inspections. He's one of the 7 franchisees in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and will go pretty much anywhere in the DFW area to do a home inspection in the area of residential, commercial, building phase inspections, pre-listing inspections. He's also a licensed termite inspector and does the WDI and termite inspections. Thank you very much, Pat, for being here.
Glad to be here.
And finally, we have Mr. Matt Dunlap here on the right for Dunlap Home Inspections. Matt has 20 years plus in the building industry, 12 years as a professional home inspector. He's a member of CCAR, the National Association of Certified Home Inspectors, and also performs inspections for buyers, sellers, new construction, 1-year warranty inspections, and light commercial. So let's thank our panelists. And I can even have my wonderful vice chair assist me with, we have a basket full of questions. So if, first of all, before we do this really quick, sorry, do any or all of the 3 of you have any one tidbit in particular that you might be able to offer to your realtor friends and affiliates to help make all of our lives easier, or something new, or anything we need to be aware of?
Well, all I can say is that before we get started here,
Yes.
any questions that Jeannie threw in the basket,
Forget about it.
yeah.
There's some good
There's
fiery
disclaimers
ones
on the table for y'all to sign before we answer.
No, nothing really. Well, I mean, we'll get to that, and we'll probably give y'all a little more information than what you really want on some of these answers. So.
Okay. So you want to just dive right into the questions?
Yes,
All right.
dive right in. Might as well.
Anybody have burning questions for inspectors? We will treat with love and care and respect always, because we love and care and respect your job.
Thank you.
We could not do this without you. You guys are making breaks in our business. Yes. Okay. Stand up, please.
We have a microphone for you.
No, I'm loud. She's got a big enough voice.
Okay, so I'm going to hit Jim with this first. What about superficial cracks in the foundation?
Superficial cracks in the foundation. So now are we talking about, whoever asked this, are you talking about cracks in the actual foundation itself that you see, or in the
garage.
walls and
Garage
the
floor.
okay, garage floor. Let's talk garage floor. A lot of times you're going to run into these cracks, and they're drying cracks. The concrete, when it dries, when it's poured, as it dries and cures, it heats up. As it heats up, that moisture goes away, and you see those little drying cracks in the garage. if you are there during the build process, you're going to see those same little cracks throughout the foundation in the house. You don't see them typically because they're covered with some kind of floor covering. You see these houses these days with the stained concrete being as popular as it is, you'll see those cracks in there too. Those are not something to worry about.
Pat, I'm gonna go to you next.
Okay.
When you find a grounding issue in an electrical panel or service, do you have the authority to make a client or home buyer upgrade his or her service?
Do we have the authority to make them do that?
That's the way it was written.
No.
You have to spell it correctly.
We don't have the authority to make the home buyer do anything. If we see a problem with the grounding inside the panel or even at the ground rod outside, if it's not bonded properly, whatever, we make note of that as deficient in our reports, and we always recommend that a licensed electrician do further inspection and repairs to that panel or whatever we find as deficient. We cannot make the buyer do anything. We don't have that authority.
I begged to give this to you, Matt. It is not my question. It is awesome.
Yeah. Shoot.
Have you ever found any illegal substances inspecting a home?
Just the ones I bring.
Hey, this is on video.
Yeah.
All three need to answer this. Any illegal substances?
No. I'm not. There's only been one other time, and I think they were actually using it as like a crack house type situation, and so I actually went through the cupboards, and there was some paraphernalia that was there, and that's about the only thing I've ever seen. Besides that, no, thank goodness.
I've never seen anything illegal. You find some interesting things laying out.
A moral's another story.
Yeah, go ahead, it's your turn.
Well, okay, so I hate to be the only guy here, but when we're doing the inspection, we don't go in and like dig through everything, right? Okay, but we do have to open cabinets under sinks and that kind of thing. And on one particular occasion, I found a few roaches, and not the kind that were alive, under a bathroom sink. So I just saw them. I'm not sure that's what they were, but that's what they appeared to be. Okay. So.
Okay, now we'll get to something a little more pertinent.
That was completely perfect.
That was totally for a laugh factor, okay? And I'd like this one, all three of you, if you wouldn't mind addressing, starting with Jim, and we'll go that way. What do you wish realtors would do differently to make your job easier?
Inform the buyer and the seller what to expect from the inspection. Okay, so on the seller side, how to have the house ready for the inspection. Don't have clothes in the closet if that's where the electric panel's at. Don't have a car in the garage where you can't pull the ladder down to get in the attic. I don't care if the key is on the wall, we're not gonna move it, okay? We're gonna call y'all to come move it, or the seller to come move it. And then on the buyer side, give them the heads up that, number one, this isn't a pass or fail, okay? We're not here to pass or fail something. And number two, real expectations, okay? There's going to be things that we're going to find and that are going to be wrong. Be ready for that.
Preparation, expectations. Okay.
I agree with Jim, especially on the seller side. I mean, we need to have the utilities on at the house. We need to have everything available to where we can look at it. The electrical panel, the attic pull down stairs, the sprinkler system, controls, everything needs to be. I've gone into garages where everything is stacked from floor to ceiling and just pathways through everything. You have to, and we're not going to move we're not going to move anything. I mean, we're not required to do that. But I've gone into garages where there's 3 dogs in the garage. You can't raise the garage door. You can't, and get there and utilities are not on, which we cannot do the inspection unless the utilities are on. That's the main thing. And that's on the seller side of it. I agree with Jim. Let the buyers know that there are going to be things that are found. There's no such thing as a perfect house, but usually the things that we find are repairable. Unless the house just needs to be demolished. And I've gone to a couple of those before too.
We've all seen
But
a couple of those.
anyway, yeah, I've said, walk fast or even run away from this house. I mean, we've actually told buyers that before. But anyway, that's the main thing. That would make our life a whole lot more simple, and well, even the buyer's agents, it would make their life simple too as well if they knew that everything was on and everything was prepared for the inspector.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much what both of them said. The biggest thing, two of the biggest things I think, especially if you know the house is vacant, like I said, make sure the utilities are on. You wouldn't believe how many times I've asked, are the utilities on? I go there and electricity's not on or the water's not on. The water meter's locked, can't get to it, The other thing would be on the seller side. If a seller's going to be there at the house, and you realize that they're going to be there, let them know that the buyer is going to be showing up, because a lot of these homes I go into and the seller is there, their house isn't exactly immaculate like it wasn't when they were showing. So when I tell them, hey, are you aware that the buyer's going to be here at such time, all of a sudden they're picking up, cleaning up, and they're thanking me for telling them about it. So make sure that you tell the seller agent, and so they can tell their seller that they're going to be showing up.
One of the other things too on the buyer's part of it, it's probably best if you don't invite all the family members and their kids to come through the final walkthrough, because we got kids running everywhere. We got family members that are looking through cabinets and things like that, and we could be held liable for anything that is broken or anything like that in that house, during our inspection. So if it's just the buyer's agent and the buyer there, that would be best.
One little quick tidbit on that too. You may or may not be aware that Collin County Association does enforce a rule that we, inspectors, are not supposed to have your client in the house without your representation there. We do it typically the last 30 minutes, the last hour or so. We're willing to accept that responsibility. But the fact is, CCAR and the Netris is actually, I think, who has this rule, and that says they are only supposed to be in the house with representation, with their buyer's rep.
Can I just interject to address the issue of minor children?
Oh, yeah. Minor children in the home, especially when school's out, if we show up and there's an underage person at the home, we're not going in that home with them. They need to have somebody there with them, need to have a parent with them, okay?
That happens a lot.
Or they could go to the
Yeah.
neighbor's house.
We'll get it. We'll get there.
Or they could go to the neighbor's house.
Yes.
Yes.
Or the listing agent could come and sit with them.
This one is for you.
Just for me, okay.
Just for you. How in the world is a rocking toilet a safety hazard?
I have actually seen some toilets that should have saddles strapped to them. As far as a safety hazard, I've never seen any casualties with a rocking toilet, but as far as an inspector standpoint on that, we write up any toilet that moves a little bit, and as far as not secured to the floor. And the reason for that is if that toilet sits there and rocks, it's going to destroy that wax ring underneath it. You're going to have a leak underneath the toilet. You're also going to have sewer smells, things like this. So we bring that to attention. We mark it as deficient and put it in our report and recommend that repairs be made. So
Safety hazard might be an overstatement.
it might be an overstatement as far as safety issue, but it's more.
I've seen some people that could fall off of one of those things. So.
I see you're in a neighborhood.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I was one of them, but
This is why we have a dog funny show going all over the place. Okay, one other question here. What does an agent do if the swimming pool equipment or some other system isn't easily operated? Meaning the home inspector can't get it to work. The buyer wants it fixed, seller thinks the inspector isn't any good and disputes all the other issues, blah, 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 blah. First of all, do you all do home inspection? I mean, I'm curious, who does pool inspections here? Okay, and then you.
Am I the only
have a
one?
pool
We have people that go out and do that, so.
So what does an agent do if the swimming pool or any other system isn't working properly when you're trying to inspect it? Do you call the agent and let them know? I'm just kind of curious.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, you know, sometimes the agent is not available. When we inspect a pool, we can't get the pool equipment to operate. We just note it as deficient in the report and recommend that, you know, further inspection or you know, and repairs, you know, from a qualified pool contractor. You know, there's lots of times when you know, people in the wintertime turn that pool equipment off and they winterize that pool. We're not allowed to turn that on. So if we're inspecting that pool, sometimes we're not allowed to turn the equipment on. We're not allowed to operate any valves or anything like that. You know, because a lot of the pool equipment is on a wireless system where they, you know, it's digital. They can control everything from inside the house. It also operates those valves when you control, you know, with that equipment. We don't operate any valves. We don't operate anything that you know. It's a visual, non-invasive inspection. We don't. We're not going to tear into anything and do anything that we're not allowed to do. So a lot of times.
Do you want to elaborate on this at all?
Well, just, you know, like sometimes the switches, you're like, I don't know if I should switch A and B, or just A, or just B.
Right,
And so
right.
then it gets marked as
Yeah.
deficient, then the seller gets a report, and they're like, that thing works.
Yeah.
Flip the switch, they just know how it works,
Right.
and you guys.
We have a general knowledge of how it works. We're certainly not experts at that.
Sometimes they're kind of rigged up.
Well, exactly. I've seen some of the jets on the Whirlpool tubs or the hot tubs outside, where you have to flip the switch and there's got a vacuum line on there. You have to hold your thumb under it to get the vacuum started to turn the jets on. I had no idea that happened until the seller came out. Oh, here's what you have to do. You know, flip the switch and hold his thumb under it. Okay, how are we supposed to know that?
Yeah.
You know,
would
so
you recommend the seller leaves you like, hey, here's some instructions?
well.
Would that help, or would that?
Along with the 20, you know, along with the 20. Yeah.
There's most of the time, if we find that it does not operate properly or it doesn't operate at all, we'll just make note of that in the report and make, you know, recommend further inspection. And, you know, that usually doesn't upset the seller. The buyer, you know, may question that, but, you know, still there are some little quirks that you have to do sometimes that the seller knows how to do it. But I always recommend to the buyers that have a pool, I ask them if they've had a pool before. Most of them will say no, and I said, well, get with the sellers, and you know, if they maintain that pool themselves, or if they have a service company that comes out and maintains that pool, get with them, because they can probably tell you the complete history on that pool. And that's the best advice I can give to the buyers.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Whoever wants to answer first. We recently, the legislative session sort of ended. We're going into another special session, but we had some changes to our sellers' disclosures. Did you guys have any additions or changes to inspection requirements?
No.
So you're not going to be out there holding anything that measures air traffic?
No. No, this is probably one of the few years that we didn't have changes to our standards of practice. So
Next year will be different though.
next
Yeah.
year is always
Next year we're
different.
not in session.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
I can go. Is an inspector required to check refrigerators, even built-ins, Matt?
Absolutely not. You know, the refrigerator is normally a product or an item that is goes with the seller. You know, as far as we check the outlets, we don't check any of the water lines to make sure the water lines are functioning. as far as the ice maker goes. You know, so as far as inspecting the refrigerator, we're not required to inspect that, no.
Even built-ins?
Even built-ins.
Even built-ins.
Yep.
Yes.
If you know they are leaving the appliances, do you check them out? Whoever wrote this, I imagine you're talking about refrigerator and washer dryer? Yeah. If you know they're leaving the appliances, do you inspect and check them out?
No.
We-
No. And he goes,
No, we do not.
The Texas Real Estate Commission that does not require us to inspect or test the washer, dryer, the refrigerator, anything like that. If it's there, I might turn it on, run a short cycle through the washing machine just to make sure that everything is draining. There's a lot of inspectors that don't do that. A lot of it, if the house is vacant, the washer and dryer is not there. There's some inspectors that even carry a little water hose that will run down that washer drain just to make sure that everything's flushing, flowing, and draining. I don't do that. If the washing machine is there, I might run a quick cycle through it just while I'm doing my inspection and just test it, make sure.
And just so you know, we're not required to make sure the drain in the washing machine is functional.
No.
You know, and there have been times when I'd say they have been clogged up on purpose. You know, there's been a couple of them where I've seen where they actually put cement down there.
Oh.
You know, so but that is one thing we're not required to inspect.
And typically, if we do go in the laundry area, they've got one of the hoses is still connected and pushed down that drain, then we know without a doubt that hose bib is leaking. So
it should be draining.
should be draining at that point.
Okay, I'm gonna ask all three of you, so hand raising on this, and I'm gonna stretch it out. Do you guys check your mains and do you crawl under?
Yes.
Everybody says
Yep.
yes? Okay.
Yes.
Well,
Have you ever found a critter under there?
Yes.
What is the craziest thing you found under a critter?
Just animal skeletons mainly. I've seen snake skins under there.
No snakes though?
No live snakes.
yeah.
This boy would have been coming out of there if I'd have found a live.
Early in my career and a few pounds ago, I was doing an inspection down around the Redbird area, and this particular house had plenty of room. I could get around everywhere, no issue, hands and knees, not crawling on my belly and all that. And it was vacant, and I had been there, I was there by myself, I'd been there for probably an hour and a half, went under the house, and then I started hearing this scratching sound. And it was coming from back over here, and I was like, okay, and then it was getting closer. Okay, and this was, the dirt was very dry, everything was great, and it's closer and closer. I finally turned around and got a view of something with eyes, and it was headed in my direction. So I very quickly, as fast as this fat boy could go, got out from under that house and got up, and when I got up, in the area that's lit now, walks a lizard. And that thing, with its tail, was probably this long. Its body was probably this long. Turns out it was a bearded dragon. I didn't know that until I started looking things up on the internet. But all it wanted was out. It could not find a way to get out. Evidently, somebody who had lived there had got loose. Evidently they had a big dog, but they had this big pooper scooper thing. I put that thing down in that hole. That thing climbed right on it. And I lifted it up, and before I even got it all the way out of the hole, that thing had jumped off and was running out the door. So it wanted me to let it go, and I wanted it to leave me alone.
I will say one thing on pets and animals, especially cats. Make sure that when we're doing the inspection that the cats and the dogs are all locked up, you know, especially cats in a cage. Because there's been one time that they accused me of losing a cat, letting a cat out, you know, and they could not find their cat. Well, what had happened was, and they finally heard some noise up in the attic. I had the attic ladder down, and I did not know, but the cat crawled up after I did. You know, and when I shut the attic hatch, the cat was still up there. You know, so that's one thing you might tell your buyers or your sellers.
Okay, let's expand one more question. As long as we're on the subject of critters, sometimes they hang you guys out to dry. I know Jim got hung out to dry. And when I get texts at like 5 o'clock in the morning from a client with pictures of rats that were killed in the house the night before, and his wife won't move in. And what type of responsibility do you feel like you have to inspect for rat poop and everything like that? And how do you handle that?
Well,
Is that a big issue?
it's absolutely, we have no responsibility for that, okay? So the inspector is not there to inspect for any pest issues or any environmental issues like that. So responsibility is one thing. Now, duty is a whole nother story, right? In my opinion, when I go in the attic and I see signs of rodent activity, be that traps, be that feces, be that little tunnels in the insulation or whatever, then I make a note on the report that says there was evidence of varmint activity. You might want to call somebody and have this properly dealt with. So.
I agree with Jim. It notes in the our standards of practice through the Texas Real Estate Commission that we are not required to check for rodents or anything like that. We will make note in the report if we do see droppings in the attic or elsewhere.
And that's one of the reasons why I always recommend that you have a pest or termite guy also inspect at the same time doing the home inspection.
Which is rarely done. But anyway. All right, why are there so many deficiency items now in capital letters? Are there more deficiencies than there used to be? I mean, I don't know.
Not any more than normal.
Yeah.
It depends on the house. Every house is different. If you got a 30 to 50-year-old house, you're going to find more deficiencies in that house than you are the newer construction, but really not any more than normal.
Yeah,
Agree?
one thing you got to understand too is we're going through and doing the home inspection. There may be some questionable items, that we're not too sure whether there's an issue here or not, and we may go ahead and call it out as an issue. That not only protects us, but protects you too in case there is something wrong. I'd much rather err on that side of it than not call it out and there be an issue later on. And all of a sudden your buyer's moved in, and then there's a big issue, and then we have a big problem. So that could be part of the issues there.
Okay, do you prefer the buyer shadow you or come at the end of the inspection?
I want them there beside me the whole time, in the attic, in the crawl space,
We all know
Yeah, no, I think you all know the answer to that. Come at the end.
Been there, done that.
Do you point out where the ground level cleanout is at the home? Anybody? Do you point out where the ground level cleanout is in your home inspection?
Yeah, I mean, if there's
Most
one
cases,
there,
yes, yeah.
and it's readily accessible. If it's covered up with mulch and flowers and plants, then chances are we're not going to see it. And oh, by the way, ours is a visual inspection. So,
Must you ask in advance to check for mold, or does it automatically come with the inspection?
Check for mold.
I didn't write these, I'm just reading.
Yeah,
That's fine.
mold is a separate inspection. You have to be certified to do a mold inspection. And depending on who you get and everything, I mean, we can call out as black substance, or organic material substance observed. But as far as calling out mold itself, we really can't even use the word mold.
We're not to use the M word.
Yeah.
We call it fungal growth, and
organic.
There you go.
And I'm not
organic
sure, but
growth.
I think to do the mold inspection, from what I've understand, that most of them charge about $500.
You have to be licensed
Yeah, you have to be licensed to
take
do it.
samples and go have them tested, things
But-
like that. So.
But now, and aside to that is if the client is concerned about air quality in the home, can a mold inspection be done at the same time as the home inspection without getting authorization from the buyer? My opinion is, yeah, you can bring them in and do air quality samples, and they could do mold sampling while you're there with the home inspection. So if the client so chooses.
Okay, there's three quick questions and then we're about out of time. How many of you do phase inspections, and do you encourage them to be
Absolutely.
done?
Yes.
Phase inspections, everybody know what that is? Explain.
thing to think about here now, and I think Pat will agree with me on this, and Matt too, but the builders right now, it is very difficult to get good quality construction folks. And the city inspectors are only there for a short period of time.
To explain what a phase inspection is, we usually do our phase inspection in 3 different phases. The first one is right before they pour the concrete slab, and we go in and inspect the reinforcement material, the plumbing rough in, the tension cables, make sure they're placed properly, and on chairs, and then of course they pour the slab. The second phase would be after the framing is done, the windows, doors, the house is dried in, everything's installed, right before they sheetrock, and then we inspect the framing, the electrical rough in, again the plumbing rough in, the HVAC equipment in the attic when it's installed, and then the final phase would be right before the clients close on the house and move in, the buyers, and that we do a complete thorough inspection as well then from top to bottom and make sure that everything's working for the buyers. And of course during the phase inspections, I spend a lot more time than just those 3 phases at that construction site. We're having, like Jim said, we're having a few difficulties with some of the builders now because they don't want us as third-party inspections on their property. And again, that is their property until that buyer closes on that house. And I know of 2 or 3 builders that want you to sign their contracts saying that, first of all, we have to have $1 million worth of E&O insurance. We can't spend more than 45 minutes at the property. We can't get on the roof. We can't open up any panels. The building superintendent has to be there the whole time that we are there. And I don't know of any inspectors that's going to sign that contract. And they do it for a purpose because they don't want, and that's my opinion, they don't want us as third-party inspectors at that building phase. So,
How much more is a phase inspection?
it depends on
Just a lot more time.
it depends on the size of the house and how many trips you're going to make there and everything like that. I think each one of us probably has our own set price, and again, we do it in those 3 different phases and charge per phase. So.
Yeah, if you know of anybody that is building a home, they definitely recommend a phase inspection. Like Jim was saying, with the unskilled labor that we actually have now, and as fast as they're putting up the homes, they're not being done right.
Okay, one last question. How are window sills inspected and determined if they're good or bad? And I know some inspectors put dots all over the house, some people put X's all over the windows to make it drastic, but how are they inspected and determined if they're good or bad?
Some
Do
of
you
them.
actually put which exact windows are bad? Go ahead, Hank. I don't know whatever you want.
Some of them are easy to spot, some are not so easy to spot. It depends on the time of day, the humidity. You could go in one morning and it's easy to see. You can go in that afternoon and it looks like a clear window. I don't ever mark anything because basically when you put that dot on that window, you're saying that every other window in this house is good, and I don't want that liability. I just if I find several windows with that thermal seal that's gone, I'll usually mark what rooms those are in, but I never count the number, and I always recommend that a window specialist come in and do further inspection, and he can determine that.
Same thing.
Yeah, absolutely, because we're not going to catch all those. It's just not possible for us to catch all those, like you said, because different variables that are involved with that. But the ones we do catch, sometimes the seller questions that, and there's little telltale signs that we see, that the seller's not looking at, so, there's various different ways of doing
It'd
it.
help if the windows are clean before you actually get there.
Yeah, if the
That would
windows are
help.
clean when you
Yeah.
get there. Windows being
Yeah.
clean when you get there makes a big difference. But
Yeah.
same with me. Early on in the business, I marked everything. I told them that there were 23 windows in the house, 22 of them were bad. Whatever, I would do that until I said that out of 23 windows, We noted that 20 of them were deficient, and we recommended that they have the window company, when they came out, to check everything. Well, they missed that piece of checking everything, and they only replaced the 20 that were noted. And then I bought 3 windows. So after that, I only say you need to have them all looked at.
One last burning question, then we gotta wrap up.
Okay, it's kind of a pricing theory question. Do you find it going there interesting that the price of your services doesn't vary whatsoever with the price of the house? So somebody could literally spend $500 to have you out to a $2 million house, and it costs the same even on a starter home?
You know, there are inspectors that base their pricing on what the house cost is. Not many of them, but there are some. I think everybody here probably bases it on square footage and age and type of foundation. But I mean, I did an inspection up in Nevada a couple of weeks ago that cost as much as a house in Highland Park, you know, to inspect, and it was a little 1,000 square foot house, but it had a crawl space. It was old. It had a crawl space. There was lots going on there. The older the house, the more it's going to take you to inspect. Newer houses are a lot easier sometimes. So, y'all have any input on that?
Any other
I agree.
final
All right.
thoughts, final comments before we wrap up? Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.